This is my Leering Skeleton. Got the Tombstone, got the skeleton swaying back and forth. I've got my homemade candles. I made everything, but I've got my homemade candles, amateur-made candles, right there with the flicker lights. So I'm going to use this video to try to show what I've done. This isn't going to be step-by-step as I'm doing it, how I created it. It's obviously just going to be kind of like what it looks like, the innards of it, and a description of kind of the basic things about it. Okay, so the skeleton is a standard Home Depot skeleton. I think I got it for like 24 bucks. And I used kind of a brown stain to age him. He was pretty much completely just white. So I used a brown stain, rubbed the stain on, rubbed the stain off pretty quickly to give it that kind of aged look. And the eyes, sockets, I had to paint those black in the nose, paint that black so they look more realistic for a skeleton instead of they were white. They do have, the eyes do have lights, which I probably will not turn on. I don't know, haven't decided yet. He's holding a little lantern, and then the candles are, you can find instructions on how to make those candles all over YouTube. It's basically PVC pipe that you melt. Well, first off, you use a heat gun to melt the candles so that they look the way they look. And then you use, to give that melted top like a real candle, then you use hot glue, a lot of hot glue, to give it the drippy wax look. And then you paint it all white. And for the flicker lights, you can buy those flicker lights all over the place. They're really inexpensive. You just stick those in there to give the candles the flicker look. Now the skeleton, I had to completely disassemble him using a screwdriver, and has a lot of screws in order to accomplish what I wanted to do here. So I'm going to turn him off, and I'm going to show you what I've done. Okay, so these are the flicker candles, and like I say, PVC, hot gun to melt it, lots and lots of hot glue, white paint, and these are the flicker candles you can buy really inexpensively, and you can, for these particular ones, you can take the bottom off of it, because I wanted, just for this demonstration, I wanted the flicker light to be a little bit brighter, so I took off the casing. They just pops on and pops off. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of these. Put them off to the side. One moment. Okay, so I took the candles away, so let's continue with what I've got here. So for the lantern, like I said, it's just some cheap lantern I found somewhere, I don't know. And these skeletons, they're posable, but the joints are very brittle. They break easily, and also the posable parts of it, they can't take really any weight. So in order to have the skeleton hold up the lantern, I had to take a piece of wire, a stiff piece of wire, and bend it into the shape of his arm and down his side, and I used zip ties to anchor the wire to sturdy parts of his body. You can see the zip ties, so that it holds the wire in place, which is what I just kind of bent it, and so it has a little hook there, to hold the lantern. Okay, and the hands do not look very realistic. They don't have a really realistic kind of curve and shape, and they needed a realistic curve to the hand to look like he's holding the lantern. So it takes quite a bit of time, and you have to be very gentle because, like I say, the plastic is very brittle on these. So I used a heat gun and slowly heated the fingers and a wrench to bend it at the joints. I'm probably going to bend this a little bit more. I don't think it looks like it's bent enough, the fingers, like it's grasping the lantern enough. So that's that. And let's see, I took the skeleton completely apart, disassembled him in order to do what I needed to do. Unfortunately, in the process of disassembling him, this leg, let me show you this leg first. They have these ratchet type joints that allow you to bend the joint and pose it and have it stay in place. You can see it in there. Unfortunately, when I did that to this one, it broke. So what I had to do is, this is temporary. I'm not sure. It kind of serves a purpose, but I'm not sure if I'm going to do a more permanent version of fixing this. All I simply did is, I don't know if you can see in here, but I took out the screws that hold this together, hold this particular bone together. Let's see, you can see the screw holes there. And then I just used 3 zip ties to create, just kind of tie them together. But this has no strength to it. So what I had to do, I wanted it to pose with the foot kind of back to give it kind of a interesting look to it. And just temporarily for this, I just stick a rock. It will, as the skeleton moves, this will fall over. So I use a rock, just kind of hold his foot down. And let's see, what else about the skeleton? Okay, so I'll get into the innards, but the way that the skeleton is supported is, you can see this piece of PVC that's running through the top of the tombstone, through his pelvis, through his lower spine, with a bend, and through his upper spine, a bend, and up through his neck. And it's a piece of 1/2-inch PVC, and what you have to do is, like I say, you have to disassemble it, and it has these internal ribs in the spine, pieces of the spine, to keep it rigid. So you literally have to I took a pair of pliers, and like I say, the plastic is really brittle, so I just snapped off the inside of the spine so that I could fit the PVC through it. Fit it through there, fit it through there, and fit it through his neck. And for the PVC pipe, it's really pretty easy to do. In order to get it the bend that you want for the shape, you just use a heat gun and you slowly heat it up, and it'll get extremely pliable, and you can bend it into any shape you want, and then just give it a second to cool down, and then it'll lock it in place. Let's see. Now, the joint here, again, it had these ratchet joints, just like I showed you earlier, but one of them broke. They are so brittle, they break. So I did the same thing. I used zip ties to hold the legs into the sockets here. Let's see. What else? And I also, the screws that hold it together are kind of small and also easy to break, so I ended up using, at various points, zip ties to hold the spine together and to hold the spine tightly onto the PVC also. think that covers the skeleton. If I think of anything, well, I'll also describe what I'm going to do. Well, maybe I'll wait till the end. I'll tell you the things that I still have to do. I said it's about 80% complete. There's still a lot of things that I have to do, and you know, when you build something, it seems like you only see the flaws. I see quite a bit of flaws that I want to touch up. Okay, so I'm going to. Okay, now I'll show you the panels that I put. Okay, so the panels are. You can see one over here. I bought these from Home Depot. They are 2-inch styrofoam board insulation. That's what I used for the panels here, and I'll describe basically what I did. And again, this is kind of a basic create a tombstone prop for Halloween. And like again, on YouTube, there are just a zillion videos on how to make these tombstones. Now, a lot of people, instead of the styrofoam, they use this type of foam board. It's called extruded foam board. It's denser, it's much easier to work with, it gives you a better look, but I decided to just, you know, go with the styrofoam one, and I may replace the styrofoam. I may redo this and replace it with this type of board because it gives it a better look. You can make it look better. I'm a little unhappy with it. I think that the cracks look like lightning bolts. But maybe I'm just being picky. So anyway, so the headstone part of it, I used. It's complicated, but I used laser printer onto a piece of paper, glued the piece of paper down using just washable child's glue stick. You know what they have in, I guess, classes. And you glue it down, and then I used a Dremel to, I don't know if you can see it, but these are recessed. I used a Dremel to carve out the letters, and then I painted the inside of the letters black to give that it really makes it pop. And the cracks, I used the styrofoam insulation board is not as easy to do these cracks as this extruded foam board is, because the styrofoam one, it flakes off into these big chunks and it's hard to get kind of fine detail. But again, I used a box cutter, I used a soldering iron, and to kind of create the cracks. Now you also want to give the tombstone an aged look. So the whole tombstone I painted, actually I didn't paint, I used something called Drylock that gives the tombstone a gritty, sandy stone look. So that I picked a gray color. And then what you do is I took black paint and green paint, and you can see here, you just put them in spray bottles and you dilute it a lot. It's a little hard to say exactly how much you dilute it. If you dilute it too much, it runs down too quickly. If you don't dilute it enough, it doesn't look quite right, so you can have to judge. But anyway, you put the paint and the water, interrupted. So you dilute the paint in a lot of water and shake it up, and again, I'm not quite happy. I don't have enough aged distinction, it doesn't look as distinct, the look that I want here. It looks like, you know, rain over time has aged it in lines. You can see it here a little bit. It doesn't look as distinctive as I want, and it's clear, so I may kind of redo that. So that's the tombstone, the surface. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how the panels are attached and go into the innards. 1 second. So let me take the lantern down. This is just my cell phone, so it's not the best kind of video. Put away this rock. I have to be really delicate because the skeleton is attached to a motor, and I have to make sure that I don't twist him as I'm disassembling, because I'm afraid it's going to strip the motor or whatever, so I have to be really careful. So the legs, nicely, since I have them just kind of zip tied together, I can just kind of bend them backward, get them out of the way. So I can start disassembling it. This one not as easily because this one still has the ratchet in that joint. Okay, it's a little tricky to get these off the way that I did it. Okay, so here's a panel. There's a panel on the front, panel on the left side, panel on the right side, and then the headstone panel right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different panels. Okay, so first off, I'll take this panel off here. That's going to reveal all of the innards. I guess I don't need to go into a lot of detail about how I attached these, but the way that I attached these panels is, hear that cracking, that is Velcro. I'm not sure if this is the best way to do it, because it's kind of different. I'm gonna put the camera down so I can get this off. It's tricky to get off. And the stacking is very easy to snap and ship. Okay, so continuing on, took the front panel off. You can see there's a Velcro strip there. There's a Velcro strip on there, and they just attach very easily together. Now I used I think it was kind of, these are about let's see, about an inch thick, and it was something of a heavy duty type Velcro, because I figured when this is out in the elements, I don't want the wind to blow these off, so I got a really strong Velcro. But they're easy to put on, but they're pretty difficult to get off. I have to be very careful because I could snap the panels if I try to take it off too quickly, because that Velcro is really strong. And so this one's attached by Velcro, this one's attached by Velcro, this one's attached by Velcro. I haven't, this isn't Velcroed, that's not Velcroed yet. The hood, as I call it, that's not Velcroed yet. And I'm not sure if I'm not sure about these two, how I'm gonna attach them. Maybe Velcro, I don't know. Okay, so let me, I'm gonna take off this panel here because it's more complicated than the other ones. So I have to be very gentle. Oh, here, let me just, I have to take off the side panels, duh, before I can take the headstone panel off. Okay, so I'll describe this in more detail. So, and there's kind of complicated reasons I had to do this. Those are one panel, those are one sheet, they're one sheet, you know, I said they're 2 inches thick. This is the same 2-inch thick insulation, but I put 2 sheets together for kind of complicated reasons so that everything looks proper. Actually, let's put this down out of the way. Pardon me if I kind of go back and forth on my description. I'm trying to figure out how best to describe this. I'll get back to the headstone in a second. Okay, so I just used some plywood here. Actually, I made this. I should have got a thicker one. I think this is a 1/4 inch. I should have got something thicker because it's more fragile than I realized. So I used a piece of plywood here, plywood, plywood, plywood. And then I used, these are not 2x4s, I thought they were 2x4s. They're actually 1 3/4 by 3.5 or something like that. They're not 2x4s. It's just what I had kind of laying around. So I chopped up, I needed, for these, I'll describe what I needed them for, but I needed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. So I had to use these 2x4s to reinforce it. So I attached the 2x4 to the bottom panel using wood screw, and then I attached the panels to a piece of 2x4 to give it the structure more strength. Now on the back, you can see this 2x4 is obviously much longer, so that I can get the Tombstone panel on here. And again, this is just attached by wood screws on. And let's see. So this 2x4, I wood screwed it. Can't see them obviously. I wood screwed it to the plywood, but to give it more strength, because this could break loose pretty easily if it moved. So I used these brackets when there to give this more support. So what do I have here? This is the guts. So this is a deer motor that I bought off of Monster Guts. It was pretty cheap. I think it was like 19 bucks or something like that. And it plugs in. And let me plug it into the deer motor rolling around. Okay, let me unplug it. Well, maybe I'll keep it plugged in. Okay, so you can see, like I say, this is a piece of PVC. This is one piece of PVC, 1/2 inch. Runs down the spine, runs down and attaches to this 2x4 at 2 spots here. And here, using, I don't know what you call these, a U bracket? I don't know what you call them. So it's a bracket and has wood screws. It's screwed in, supported down there, supported there. And the PVC has to be able to twist nice and freely. If there's too much resistance, it's going to overwhelm this little motor here. So what I did is I bought, if you can see it here, but I bought some strips of, you can't really see it, I bought some strips of felt that have an adhesive on one side, and I put the felt on this side of the bracket so it will, turn a little bit more smoothly. I still need to get this to, I need to get it to move more smoothly. I think there's still a little bit too much resistance when it's twisting. I'm afraid that the motor's going to burn out. And this was the really, really, really tricky part, was figuring out where I wanted the skeleton to sit on the Tombstone. It was much more difficult than I thought, because I can't have the skeleton sitting on the styrofoam, because that twist, it's gonna eat through the styrofoam. So that was tricky to kind of figure it out. I discovered that I have to get all the panels on there and spaced up, and then I could go back and put the skeleton on and kind of adjust him so he just sits above the styrofoam. Let's see. And the other tricky part, my God, was, let's see. I'll reattach it here so you can see it go. Like I say, there are a ton of videos on this on YouTube. I'll just show you mine. Let me unplug it. And this is, again, this is another bracket with some just
screws and washers. And in order to get it to twist, I used another bracket and screws to attach it to this, the PVC. And then I just place it over here like this, that. And as the deer motor spins, it pulls the pipe back and forth. Twist the PVC, and Mr. Skeleton twists along with it. And this was really tricky as well. You have to get it has to be perfectly aligned. It has to be the perfect lengths. Otherwise, it'll strain the motor because it'll be pulling against nothing. And you can get, as far as I know, I've only been able to get a maximum of 90 degrees of back and forth with my skeleton, and from listening to other people, that's about the maximum you can get, which is fine. That's all you want, I suppose. And again, you have to be nicely aligned, so I used just a piece of wood, and this is a cap for PVC, so that there's less resistance. Than I put again, I put a piece of felt on the bottom of that PVC cap to reduce the resistance. Just a piece of wood, a piece of wood, and another piece of wood bracketed here. The deer motor has to be really stable because it is, it's doing the pushing and pulling and rotating, and it has to be very firmly. It has to not move at all. So the 2x4, I bracketed it in, and then other people, they use screws to hold it firmly into the 2x4, but I just use nails because I want to be able to disassemble this pretty easily. And it turned out a good choice because as I was working on this, I needed to kind of take this deer motor off and on frequently to kind of get the linkages and everything up proper. Okay, so that's the deer motor. Let's see. A lot of people use not a deer motor, but because they need more power, and I may end up needing more power, is they use a windshield wiper motor, which you can buy at Monster Guts and many other places. So I've seen some people use, rotisserie motors, like you have in barbecues. Those are because those have a lot of what's called torque, twisting and rotating power. This deer motor is kind of at the limit of its power to get my skeleton to do what he needs to do. Okay, so in order to get the panel to properly fit, it needs to, attach to this. That's only, like I say, 1/4 inch, but I needed, quote unquote, 2 inches. I guess, like I say, it's 1 1/3 inches, so I need a 1 1/3 inch there, and then I needed it to stick out even further so that to make room for the PVC and the bracket. So that's why I put two pieces together. And there's a seam there, which most people, if they do it, they will use, I don't know what they use, some kind of compound to hide the seam and then paint over it, but I was too lazy to do that. So that's the reason that I had to use 2 panels. And then on the back of the headstone panel, I had to carve out a channel here to accommodate the PVC pipe, and also obviously I had these little pieces of 2x4 to support it, so I had to carve out these spots to accommodate those 2x4s, and those are going to be very fragile. To be very careful with those. Those might snap off. And there were so many parts of this that ended up being trickier than I realized. It's like I had to decide, okay, did I want the front panel to be to here and the side panels come up here, or did I want The top panel that I want to have a little bit of lip so that the rain wouldn't get into the crack. So there was a lot of, as you are start working through this, you'll discover little things that, little details that are really important. There's a lot of points of failure in this, so you have to really think through this. Okay, I think that covers everything. Now I'm going to go over some of the things that I still need to do. This has to be waterproof, so it's going to be outside, so I'm trying to think of ways to make it waterproof. I was thinking of putting weather stripping around the hood. I think I need to use, caulk or something to seal those seams. The hard part's going to be where the headstone part meets here. The rain is going to want to rush down here, so I'm trying to figure out how to. I don't really want things that touch the styrofoam panels. I don't really want those to be permanent. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to do it so it keeps the rain out, but it's not permanent. And then, of course, rain's going to try to run down this piece of PVC into here, so I have to figure out how to keep that from happening. I mean, I am in a place that doesn't get a lot of rain around Halloween, but still, it does get enough rain to cause a problem. The other thing I need to do, you can see that the PVC is exposed here, so I need to paint that black. That PVC, piece of PVC, this PVC, I need to paint black. The zip ties, I don't know. Maybe I'll be able to remove them, but I don't think so. I need that extra support. Okay, let's see. Oh, one thing I didn't cover is the PVC goes up his back, but when you have the lantern sitting on the arm, it adds extra weight, and he twists, and the arm falls down, or the body twists over, which isn't good. So what I had to do is I had to drill, if you can see them, I had to drill a hole from skeleton through the PVC and put a couple of screws in there to keep him from twisting. And this part of the skeleton too, I wanted this pelvis part to twist, so I had to screw this in to keep it from twisting, and I also had to screw it in so that it stayed at the right height, because otherwise it would slide down and hit the styrofoam. And you can see I separated it where I needed to bend the PVC to give the right posture that I wanted. So let's see. And that was one of the things there's a zillion different ways you could do it. Some people prefer an upright posture. Some people have it so that the skeleton is bending forward from here. Some people have the pelvis attached and only the spine rotates. I decided this way. I may change my mind. I want to do a different type of posture. So there are plus and minuses to each kind of whatever posture choice you make. So there's my skeleton, the innards. I think that covers anything. Feel free to ask me questions in the comments, and I will try to answer anything I can. I know I left out some stuff. There are some more things that I want to tweak and add to it, but maybe another video later. Thanks for watching. Bye.